everybody, and welcome to the Sharpen Podcast. I want to welcome you to a great edition. I'm excited to join you today. My name is Drew Hiss. I'm the founder and chairman of Acumen. As you know, the Acumen community exists to help sharpen, challenge, and inspire business owners and CEOs, help them be mindful of growing the top line, optimizing the bottom line, and enriching the storyline. And to help me enrich a storyline today, I get the distinct pleasure of introducing you to a special guest named Duane Donner. Duane is the founder and CEO of Founder Advisors here in the Birmingham area. We're actually going live here and recording in the studio located at Highlands College in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. Founders Advisors, an M&A firm, investment banking firm, founded nearly 25 years ago by Duane. They have 3 offices and 6 practice groups inside their organization of nearly 60 team members. They've been in business for nearly 25 years and have brokered some $8 billion in business transactions over that time. So a great pedigree and set of experiences around helping entrepreneurs and business owners navigate the world of business transaction. Duane is a native of Louisiana.
That's right.
And now lives in Alabama. He has an engineering degree from University of Louisiana and an MBA from the University of Alabama. He's been an entrepreneur all his life, which was what intrigued me really to have this discussion with Duane today. He brings to the table some practical entrepreneurial experience that is relatable to our audience, certainly. Previous life had a food and manufacturing distribution business, which he then sold, and I believe that's sort of what scratched this itch around the transaction world and M&A opportunities. Duane is exceedingly involved in the community. Admire this so much about him. He has had time in the Army before some of his education pursuits and business pursuits, but holy cow, he's involved with this Highlands College where we sit today and on their board of directors. This is an amazing organization. We just spent time at lunch with the chancellor and had a tour of this facility. Hidden gem. Oh my gosh, they are equipping and preparing the next wave of leaders that go into not-for-profit charitable work in the church environment, ministries and church leaders. And it's really encouraging to see how they're applying a military academy structure to that type of model to equipping laborers for a harvest that is plentiful.
Amen.
And I love what I see here. He's also involved with the FCCI and the Bridge to Rwanda organization, and is also founder of Heritage Forums and an organization called Abide and Lead, a ministry organization he founded to come alongside business owners and CEOs to help them really be thoughtful of the legacy that they hope to leave through their lives. And it's really impressive. I've been to one of the Heritage Forum events, and I would call it Acumen meets halftime in this phenomenal. It's a compliment, brother. It was so rich, and met some incredible people there. So thank you for that. Duane's been married to his wife, Amy, for 35 years. They have 3 daughters, 2 son-in-laws, and 8 grandchildren. That's an exciting milestone as well to share. Well, welcome to the Sharpen Podcast, Duane.
Yes, great to be here.
Hey, buddy. It's good to have you on.
So good to have you here in Birmingham, and to have you here at one of my favorite places, Highlands College, which I'm very passionate about, as you know. And hopefully you know why I'm passionate now that you've had a chance to get it.
I understand, brother.
It's unbelievable what God's doing. It really is. I love Ephesians 3:20. But to me, this is just a real example of what that looks like. So very excited to be
here. Share that verse just so that
Ephesians 3:20.
Those who, like me, don't have it personally memorized.
Well, and I've quoted often that God is able to do immeasurably more. That's a big word. Mm-hmm. Some other, ways to say that is he can do more than we can imagine, so he can do immeasurably more than we can ever ask or imagine by his power at work in us and through us for his glory. And so that's what I've seen happen here. And I believe, as we've talked about Acumen, that God can do the same thing through us as followers of the Lord in our families, in our businesses, in our community, if we just, that's why I love Abide and Lead, which is kind of if we stay connected to the vine. And I have to quote that verse. It's my life verse, John 15:5, where Jesus said, he makes this analogy to a vineyard, and he says, I am the vine and you are the branch. If you abide in me,
remain in me.
Remain, abide, connect. Then I will abide in you, connect, remain, and you will bear much fruit. So that's a promise. Of course, he also said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Which is really nothing of eternal value. You can do a lot of things in this world. But if you want to live for eternity, we have to be connected to the vine of Christ. So that's what that's all about. Now, of course, I love just what I get to do. And, so I'm excited today I love what you're doing with Acumen. We've talked a lot about it. I feel like we have similar hearts towards investing in other men because we've had similar, experiences in business and trying to help people grow to the full potential in Christ.
Yeah, there are a lot of parallel tracks. I drove down here yesterday from Nashville,
right?
3.5, 4-hour drive. Quite easy, in fact. We should do this more often.
Yes, I want to go up to Nashville. I love going to Nashville, by the way.
And Duane had me as a guest on his podcast, and it really made sense to reciprocate.
Amen.
So this is a great place to meet and cut this show.
Amen.
I alluded in the introduction to your successes in business. Mm-hmm. Share for our audience what's attributed most to those successes and allowed you to lead with such effectiveness.
Yeah, well, it starts with, similar to your story, going through the school of hard knocks, which I went through in my early 20s, late 20s, up until really my early 30s. And my first venture that I launched was a Cajun food. I love Cajun, so I had an affinity towards that. And I launched a Cajun food business right out of MBA school, which took off with great success. And I was so, at the time, ambitious and insecure, which, was part of because I wasn't walking with the Lord. I was going to just go for it. I just swung for the fence and really got over my skis, expanded very rapidly, took on debt, which I've learned a lot about these things. I think you have a similar story. And found
scar tissue, right?
Yeah. I have a lot of scar tissue. Found myself in my late 20s really at this terrible place. And similar to the story we just heard, I got rushed to the hospital, thought I had a heart attack.
Wow.
Was having all these heart issues, I'd always been healthy. And the doctor came out with my wife standing there after I ran all the tests, said, good news is nothing wrong with your heart. I'm like, what? Said, the bad news is something's wrong. And like, whatever you're doing, like, have you been under any kind of anxiety, stress or anything? And of course, my wife's like, heck yes. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. That's how blind it was. And that was a kind of a life-changing moment because about 3 weeks later, my wife looked at me, came down to my office. I was commuting back and forth to Atlanta where I'd bought this plant and said, it's over. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, basically, you either sell this company and quit doing this, because I was really in a bad place and I wasn't being a good husband because I was working all the time. Or me and the kids, we had never talked about divorce, we're leaving and it's over. And I was like, how can you do this? And she goes, watch me. My wife's a very gentle woman, but she was at the end. And it was the best and worst thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to go through the brutal and humbling process of what I thought was failure, because I had to divest of the company, and it was not a pleasant process. At the same time, it was the beginning of the beginning of really my life and journey that I'm on now. And I mean, it was a few years later, as I've kind of navigated through that I really came to this place of surrendering my heart to God, coming to faith. And that really is what started what I would call the successful point, 25 years of my life, because it was from a totally different perspective.
Right.
So
that's somewhere in there you sold this company and you began a new journey.
Yes.
Was that immediately thereafter?
I had about a 2-year stint where I was just trying to get things back to a baseline, rebuild my marriage, rebuild my balance sheet. I didn't go bankrupt, but I was kind of like you, right on the. I mean, we were broke, so I got a consulting job in the construction industry and my wife said, just get a job, like a job, where you go to work, get a paycheck, and come home.
I had a couple conversations.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that sounds terrible, but I had to do it.
Right.
So I did it for about 2 years. And I mean, literally at the end of the second year, I was dying because I'm like, I can't keep doing this. This is, if you're built to be an entrepreneur, having a job is like, it's like being in hell.
Right.
Right. So I did it for 2 years, and then I was like, I got to do something. And that's really when I was led into the industry I'm in now, the M&A advisory, investment banking. And really what planted the seed in me on that is right out of college, I was an engineer. I went to work for my father-in-law, who was building this company. It was an offshore oil and gas company. I went to work for him. And while I was there, it was a very short stint. I think I worked for him for a year. I realized that wasn't going to work because he was a very strong personality, and it just wasn't cut out for it. And nor was I a good engineer either.
Maybe good for your marriage not to do it.
Yeah, exactly. My wife warned me of that. But during that time, what was so cool, He almost went bankrupt, had this huge turnaround. It's a great story, but he actually ended up taking his company public. So I got to watch him buy a couple of companies and take his company public. He was wildly successful. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I saw these investment bankers come in and underwrite his business. It was very exciting. It was really cool. And so that planted the seed. And then as I went through the process of divesting my business, I met some M&A advisors kind of in the Atlanta and in the Birmingham market. And I was like, there was really no formidable firms. And I'm like, I think I can do this, and I think I could actually build something eventually. So that's kind of what led me into doing investment banking. I went to work for a small firm. I worked there for about a year, got a couple of deals done, went to work for a larger firm, worked there for a couple of years, and then I started Founders in 2003, really with just a dream that I literally believed that I could, build a M&A advisory firm in Alabama that could really bring the same level of service that you would get in some of these larger markets, kind of a Wall Street type, acumen or ability to this lower middle market, but do it in a way that was very relational. And so how do you deliver the service? And we started kind of with, I remember the big deal was, and of course I was a new believer when I started the firm, it's like we want to live by we call it the golden rule plus. We want to treat people better than we would be treated. And in our industry, there's great people, very smart people, a lot of very capable people, but there's a lot of folks that are very transactional and really trying to get to that deal and that fee. So that we just took that approach, starting out way back.
Well, so obviously this firm has grown significantly.
Yeah.
You serve clients from coast to coast,
Yeah.
and probably even dip your
internationally,
water
yes.
into the international areas. What's been a key to that, attracting talent and growing and scaling your organization?
Well, similar to you, and again, not to be a cliche, but really I was a new believer when I started this business, and very different than when I started the Creoles Market Culinary Innovations business, which it was like, I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to do all this. I was broken. And when I started this new business, I did it really I felt like being led by the Spirit, and did it very open-handedly. I did it more as a steward, understanding that it wasn't mine and that that guy could really use me, and it was his business and I had to submit to that. So I did it with a totally different posture and very much from a servant's perspective, wanting to love and serve people. And I've always been interested in business. And then as we built the company over time, because it's again, I've read in your book, a quote, and I can't remember who quoted it, but basically, I've done these things and it's overnight success, 25 years in the making,
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, there have been a lot of tough times over the years, but we walk by faith in this, and I did start to attract the right people. Because when you have a certain, approach to business and character, integrity, and basically doing what you say and living this kind of, we call it the golden rule model, then all of a sudden it doesn't take you long to start building a reputation. And you start attracting the right people. And what I would say is the biggest key to my success over these years is I've just been fortunate to attract the right people. We're in a service business. It's all about the people. And so it's about attracting and retaining the right people, and of course, building out the systems and the platforms to deliver. And today, what I would say, and I know this is your heart too, based on your businesses, it's delivering our services at a gold standard level, which kind of our vision is we want to be the Chick-fil-A of our industry. And we don't make chicken. What we do is a bit more complicated, but it's like the experience. The client experience is really what we're after. How do we get the best results? Chick-fil-A has...
How do you tangibly measure an experience like that in your books? Do you have a metric that you're chasing?
We do it in a lot of ways. Obviously success rates and so forth. But part of what we do is when we're going through the experience, we have pulse surveys with our clients, and we're constantly, touching them to go, it's more how they feel through the process, because it's a very, as you know, going through this process is very emotional. It's very taxing. And no matter, even if you're great at doing it, there's times when it really weighs on our clients. So we're constantly thinking through, just like Chick-fil-A does. We learned this, by the way, from Chick-fil-A. We spent time at their corporate headquarters with their key people behind the scenes, and they study every part of that process. And it's what we've done. Of course, our process is generally like 6 to 8 months long.
Right.
So we study every part of the highs and the lows. And when And we do things through that process to offset some of these emotional, because really we're called founders advisors. Most of our deals are working with founder-based companies. And these companies when you take them through a process, it's not an asset. It's a living, breathing thing. It's like one of their kids. Amen. So we're psychologists as much as we are a financial advisor. So if you don't understand that, and by the way, many investment bankers don't because they see it more as a deal, then no, these are people and how they feel, where they are at different types of that transaction matters a lot. By the way, that's a big part of whether you win or lose because it's binary. The deal either closes or doesn't close. Many times the reason deals don't close is not because of the other side, the people buying it, it's our seller loses it. They run out of juice. They fatigue. Deal fatigue.
Like that is, I mean, I remember the fatigue set in with me, and I could tell you a funny story about it that, well, I don't want to go there. It'll be a rabbit hole we don't want to get through. But
got a lot of those.
How do you reel somebody back in who's suffering from deal fatigue and just wants out? I'm done.
Well, what you first do, and we all know this in business, what you first do is you try not to get there. And so we've learned, because we've done this over and over and over, and we are very much into continuous improvement, always trying to learn. And so we trying to institutionalize our knowledge, not just have it and compartmentalize it and share these. So we have ways where we're, again, through this client experience, we're anticipating what's coming next. Manage expectation is to manage them by saying, hey, we're about to go into this phase. And during this phase, this is what can happen, or this is what normally happens. Here's what we're going to do to kind of cut that off at the pass, or to navigate this. And a lot of it's just kind of like your doctor. When you go to the doctor and you're about to go, a good doctor is going to say, hey, it's going to be okay, but let me tell you what about.
So you guys have good bedside manners.
Yeah, bedside manner, which is called client experience, which is called caring for people through a process, opposed to just like, I'm ripping out the saw, I'm about to cut open your knee, and you don't even, I haven't told you anything about what's about to happen. That's terrifying, you know what I mean? So, indeed. I mean, some of this is common sense, but it's funny how, people many times forget common sense, especially if they're analytical and they're just trying to.
Well, share a story or two maybe in there, where you've had a transaction that was maybe you could sense the fatigue setting in and you guys helped pull them out, or a scenario where maybe I even love stories about transactions that, oh my gosh, this thing ended so much better than we ever thought.
Yeah, we've done so many of these things. We have tremendous, glorious success stories, and we have the brutal reality too. And by the way, we have way more success stories we have less brutal than we used to because of what I'm talking about. But we've had both. So, recently, I'm more recent. And by the way, for 25 of the, or 20 of the, I've been doing this for 28 years, but I quit leading transactions about 5 years ago because I'm running the company. And I think that's what a good leader does. They're not just a practitioner. I'm leading the company. But one of the deals I got to participate in more recently was one of those, what I call a glorious success. And so this was a good friend of mine who I've known for many years, had an amazing business, and had built over 25, 30 years, and they were ready. They're in their 60s. They have a family coming up, that are, young adults getting out of college. And they were like, we think it's time. And by the way, the business had hit a ramp that was phenomenal. I mean, they were killing it. And it's in an industry like, hey, if I were you, I'd figure out how to take some chips off this table, unless you're going to stay in this long term. And they weren't planning on it. So in that case, but the thing the monkey wrench they threw at us was they had this big division out in Texas, which was really the cash cow, the main part of the business. And then they had this Eastern division, and they were like, hey, we really want our kids to be part of this, but they don't really have experience. And that can always be tricky because they're kids. And they weren't in the life cycle where it was made sense for their kids to get involved in this. So we've said, look, what we can do, we can take this business to market. We can sell off your Texas division, which is really the lion's share of your business. We think we can get a tremendous premium because Texas is an amazing market. And we can preserve and carve out your Eastern division and allow that to be really where your family has a legacy business going forward. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's an easy thing to say. It's not an easy thing to do in this case. And we, through a very intentional, and it was a very intense process. We were able to bring the right players to the table carve out that Texas division, sell that off, and literally give them a free rein on growing this Eastern division with no non-compete. There was no non-competes or anything, and actually even keep a little bit of a piece of this there on the board. So they're learning. They ended up getting a private equity backed but strategic acquirer. We had a great auction. I mean, auction meaning competitive bid process. They got paid a tremendous premium. I mean, it was an unbelievable deal. You know, sometimes even surprises us what these companies get paid in this kind of the industry there, and it was just mind-boggling. But they had a company that had a technology that they could implement into their different locations. And they saw the value, so they ended up paying really well for this. Our team was able to benefit from just getting a premium valuation. But the biggest win in this deal was they got to keep this Eastern division. By the way, they live in Alabama. They don't live in Texas. So they get to keep this business, bring their kids into it, and then leverage the knowings and the knowledge from this very advanced technology-driven company into this new business for the next generation and their next venture. And now I've just talked to the guy who was at one of my events, my Heritage Forum events 2 weeks ago with his wife, and he's living his best life. He's getting to mentor his kids, but he's not active in the day-to-day of the business. He's doing amazing things for the kingdom because they have a they have a big foundation, and he's getting to kind of do what he loves to do, which this guy's very entrepreneurial, but he's getting to put his entrepreneurial use into. By the way, one of the things he's doing, which is awesome, is this was in the business of thrift, where they basically take, which is a big business, by the way, take people's stuff
like Goodwill or Salvation.
Yeah, exactly, and they sort it and collate it and all that, and they sell it. And there's a whole big industry that's very popular because of recycling today, and people. So one of the things they've been able to do is take those expertise and put them into ministries. We have a ministry here that I'm a supporter of, Vapor Ministries, that has 3 thrift stores that they've helped actually build that funds over 50% of this worldwide ministry. So it's cool. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right.
And that's one of my favorite stories because it hits every piece of it hits the legacy. It hits, hey, I rang the bell and I really was able to monetize this thing that I built over 25 years and really get the highest value out of it. And it also kind of rings a bell on the kingdom work,
Yeah, I love that story. It's the triple win.
It's a triple. And they're good friends of ours, and we got to invite them to the Heritage Forum and to the Heritage Couples, and so I'm getting to sow into them.
Absolutely. So you've walked this journey with a lot of different entrepreneurs like that family. What do you see are some of the common pitfalls that owners or entrepreneurs get trapped by or fall into if they start thinking about transactions?
Yeah, the biggest one, and you know this, and most people know this, is they wait too long to really think about their transition or their succession. And they end up either being in a situation where they really don't have a market-ready company. In other words, it's very challenging to get a deal done because it's really not a really well-functioning business. It's more of a built around a person business, or they don't think about succession. The reality is that more and more as I get older, you know this, you have this reality where we're not going to be here forever. Nobody's got out here alive except there was one that came back from the dead. But we all have a shelf life, and the sooner you kind of understand that, and what we're really advocates for is that we're all in a transition, and it's whether you're 40 years old, 30 years old, or 50 years old, you should always be thinking, what happens after me? What happens if something happens to me? Because you're building something that if it's not built for sustainability, will die. And it's not transferable, or it's not that valuable. Right. The best business is a business that can last past you. The best ministry, the best anything. And by the way, the mark of a great leader from my perspective is somebody who builds something that it will last past them. It's not built on them.
Right.
And so the biggest downfall we see, the biggest issue, people are thinking about the business. And again, I get it. We build companies. There's times you don't have the capacity to think about what's after me. But there becomes a point in time where you should start to focus your energy on who is next? What is my succession? What is my transition? And if you build a successful business that has sustainability and succession, you have endless opportunity. Right. You can do whatever you want to do. By the way, you have the opportunity like we're doing right here because I've worked on that and I'm doing that in our business. I get to do this. If I was in the middle of my business, running my business, working in my business like I was the last, for the 20 years, I wouldn't be able to do this. Yeah. And so I'm able to leverage what God's given me to do more, have more impact. And And this helps my company. And that's how you grow leaders and how you empower people and how you build something that really has a big impact. And I just don't see people doing that as much as they should, which is why I love what you're doing at Acumen and what you help people see. Many times, if you're not around the right people, you don't see it.
Right.
But if you are around the right people, they're going to ask that question.
Well, there is this tendency, we've used this tagline a lot, where should be this is an opportunity where you can work on your business, not in your business.
I love that.
But what you're saying is that should be a behavior every day of your
Every
life
day.
as a leader. You should
Yes.
be working toward a scenario where you're working on your business, not in it, and creating a sustainability.
A person in your business, this is what we do at Founders, they have to mentor somebody to take their role. If you want to grow to the next level, you got to bring somebody in. And we should all be thinking about who's the guy that's going to take my place.
Value drivers. What are the big value drivers for a business as you guys are taking something to market?
Yeah.
What are the you've got a pool, I'm sure, of investors that you take a book to, and what are the things that?
I was at a dinner last night with investors and having this conversation. A good friend of mine's going through the process. So, I would say that the first is, which we would all assume is the financial model of the company. Is the company solid? Is it growing? Is it profitable? Is it sustainable? And, that's a big deal. And does it have, diversification? Because it's all about risk. It's all about a risk model. What is the perceived risk in this business? If you have one customer, that's a very risky model. So first it starts with the financial model, not just having a good financial model, but having good financials, being able to show the track record, because people are investing in a track record and a potential for the future. That's one. The second most important thing, or maybe even up there with it, is the leadership. Because most people in this world, when they're investing in a business, they're investing in the people who lead the business. Right. And if you don't have good leaders and good succession and depth, if there's one key guy, that's called key man risk. That's why people get insurance for it. So that's probably the second, biggest thing that you can see. And of course, growth is what people are buying to get a return or to get a high value. The only way you get a high valuation, if you have something that basically has no risk, which there's very few things that don't have risk, but the other way you get it is growth. You got to have growth. How are we going to go from here to there? What is the market, and what is our opportunity to take this business and double it or triple it? Those things are big factors. Now, there's a ton of other ones, and we do, as I think you and I talked about, we have a tool we developed many years ago, and we're just getting better and better at using this tool, but it's an assessment, a tool that we use to help people really assess the market ready, investment grade of their company relative to their peer groups.
That's what you referred to as the investment grade assessment. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll have a little call to action on that. And put that out.
It's a great tool, and we've worked to build it into an industry segmentation, because every industry has its own, as you know, has its own set of, nuances relative to the things that drive value in a business and their metrics and so forth. And so it's not just a broad business, but if it's a payroll services company versus a construction related business versus a manufacturing company in a certain particular industry or whatever, a software company, those are all different.
Right. So one of the things you and I've wrestled a little bit with while I've been down here is this idea, and it's sort of, I would even say, part of the motive to start Acumen, yet it sort of contradicts with, a transaction-oriented organization like yours, and that is, I felt compelled after having gone through a transaction and maybe looking back with some regret, and then watching a few other peers of mine go through transactions, and then, some bad things happen on the other side of those transactions. Being mindful of the experience I went through, which was when I merged with Paycor, I sort of at some point during that journey, and when I stepped away from the organization, I realized I walked away from a platform of influence and impact that I never realized I had. I knew it was there, but I wasn't that intentional about it, and I wasn't thinking about how I could leverage that to really influence the kingdom and have an eternal impact on the lives of people we served. We were, I think, by the world standard, pretty intentional about it. But I could have been so much better.
Which is what I wake up in the morning getting excited about.
I found myself compelled by when founding Acumen that I'm going to help other owners understand that platform of impact and influence, so that they, while they have it, are mindful of it and intentional about it, but also maybe it's not selling your company.
Right.
I may try to talk you out of selling your
That's
company.
right.
If you got a great cash flow machine,
That's right.
Why would you hand it off to private equity or somebody who's going to destroy it? So,
and by the way,
maybe speak to that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I like to say is private equity has a very bad name, and they're not all bad people. There's very good private equity. I've seen tremendous success stories where private equity has bought companies and they've taken these companies to a whole nother level, and they've really been very good.
Name one. I mean, I'm joking.
I can name a lot of them.
Do you have a story of a specific?
Yeah, I do.
A quick story.
Yes, I have many stories where we've sold companies to private equity, and they've been, the business has flourished on the other side of that. One of those was a quick story, down in Louisiana, had a company that was, kind of hit a ceiling. Some guys I knew, they were running the company, and I said, hey, they had an opportunity basically to buy this company from the founders. We brought in a private equity partner out of Tampa, and we ran them through a process and got these guys on board. And these guys were great operators, but they had no clue how to strategically grow their company. They didn't really understand the capital markets. They didn't understand how to, leverage, put financial capabilities and systems into their company. And within 3 years, we took that company they took the company, the private equity group, took that company from, about a $20 million company, probably with $2 million of EBITDA, to like a $100 million company with like, $12 million of EBITDA, and really ended up selling the company for a very high multiple and a very, very slow. And these guys, they got a second bite of the apple. It was a great, and I've got case study after case study of these types of things where those guys today would tell you the best thing they ever did was that transaction, because they learned and they grew to a whole nother level because they had great partners that really did partner with them and add a ton of value. And so I'm just saying, there are private equity groups that don't add value, that maybe destroy companies, but I'm telling you,
you guys are pretty good at sniffing some of those out.
That's our job.
Right.
So it's not, just to make it clear, what we do is not just go find a buyer.
Right.
In fact, that is the lowest level. That is kind of a brokerage model. An investment banking model is we're trying to really first and foremost understand the goals and objectives of our clients, and then go to this very vast market, which is vast, and find the right fit. And it's not one, it's multiples, because most of our deals will have 10, 15, 20 different people bidding on these deals, and every one of them is a highly qualified fit. It's not just another buyer. It's somebody who fits what we're trying to achieve. And then it's a funnel process, and we take all that down to ultimately, through that process, finding not just the best bid, the highest bidder, which we generally lean towards trying to get the numbers to the right number, but also the right fit, culturally, value add, all the factors that go into it. It's not one dimensional, it's very multidimensional. So that's what a good advisor does, and they do it in a way that's enjoyable. That's the process. There's a lot. And I think the question you were asking me earlier, I'm trying to remember the question. We got off on the side story here.
Well, it had to do with
about the perpetual. I do want to mention that real quick. One of my new passions at this stage of life, and we're actually doing this in our business today, is the concept of a perpetual model, where if you built a company, it has a legacy concept to it, whether that's family or purpose or mission, which we have at Founders. We have a mission. We have a purpose in our firm. To your point, it's a platform to do ministry for me primarily, but also for many of our team members. And so I don't want to, we could sell our business and we could get a good valuation for it in a high liquidity market. We have decided that I want this business to go into perpetuity. So we actually have built a transition plan where I'm going to sell my stock over time to my next generation of leaders that I've been building up. I'm super excited about it. And we've also put in place.
But it's say the formal name, perpetual.
There's a so and this is one aspect. I put in place a perpetual purpose trust.
Perpetual purpose
trust. You can look it up. And basically what that is, it's a protector of the vision and values of the firm in perpetuity. So if I sell this business, which I'm doing, to my next generation of leaders, they cannot, 10, drift. 20 years from now drift, or they can't go sell it again. They can't just say, well, Duane's going now, so we can just go sell this company. Because there's an outside board that basically protects that trust. And there's a lot to that, and that's a very short. But I'm just saying, more and more today, If you build a great company, you have many options. You can get liquidity. You don't have to sell the business necessarily to get liquidity. You have to transition the business because we don't live forever.
Right.
But you can. There's different ways you can put those into different teams.
Right.
You can do that over. The best way to do it is over time and not in a one-time transaction. So there's a lot of ways to navigate that, and there's more options than ever. There's more and more of these groups popping up that are evergreen, that are basically saying we'll come alongside you and we'll stay on mission and we'll let this thing live on.
Which I love, absolutely. I think that's even partly how you and I met, was
right.
along the lines of perpetual capital
That's
structures.
Right.
So last question, just any final nugget, word of wisdom you want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of what I was just mentioning. You know, you and I talked about this. I think we should see everything in our lives, especially our, if we're business owners, as, both, yes, this is a temporal thing. First of all, we're not going to be here forever, so, we have a shelf life. But also if we see it in light of eternity where there is a perpetual concept. By the way, we store up things not for things for earth, but for heaven. Like there's a reward for putting things forward to heaven. So as we get older, especially as we move into these transitionary periods in our families and our businesses, really to think of it differently, to really get that kingdom perspective, like, yeah, this is great. And we were just talking about, I mean, you only need so much money. You only need so many resources. At some point, it starts going the wrong way on you. If you have too much stuff, you have too many options. It's like, well, what can I do? Just seeing it different. Like God's blessing me, not for me to just do it all here, but for eternity. It'd be like if we go on a vacation to Europe for 2 weeks, and we spend the whole time buying a bunch of stuff and say, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have to leave it there.
Right.
What are you doing? Just enjoy the vacation. Yes, spend money, enjoy it. God says we can enjoy it. 1 Timothy 6:17. He says, command those who are rich in this present world, not to be greedy or not willing to share, but to basically, you can enjoy this stuff, but you're doing it for something bigger and make the most. That's what I would encourage us as kingdom leaders is we're going to do things on earth, but be thinking about something for eternity, because that is, at the end of the verse, it says, then you will not store up things for yourself on earth, but you will experience the life that's truly life. It's the abundant life. The abundant life is the fact that we get to do both. We get to be active and present, building here on this earth, but we're doing it for something for eternity.
Right.
And that's the great twofer. That is the abundant life. That's why you're doing what you're doing. That's why I get to do what I get to do, and it just doesn't get any better than that. And I promise you, we're gonna have more fun than anybody.
Absolutely,
really.
Absolutely.
That's the truth.
Duck hunting in heaven, right?
Yeah, it may. That's a whole nother topic. You don't want to open that can of worms.
I don't know. Thank you.
Yes,
You've been an awesome guest and a very informative one. I'm guessing there may be some listeners in our audience who may want to find you. So how do they find you?
The best way to find me for business is foundersib.com. That's founders, it's Founders Advisors, but it's our website's www.foundersib.com. We'll put that in the show notes. I as in ink, B as in boy for investment banking. Okay. And then, of course, on the ministry side, it's Abide and Lead is our ministry. If you just type in Abide and Lead, then we have a ministry for business owners to help them.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you for being on the show. And the other call to action here, if somebody wanted this investment grade assessment,
we'd love to
how do
administrate
they go about getting that?
So again, on the show notes, we'll give you a link.
Yep.
And if you click the link, it goes through the process. And and it says this in there, if you click on the link and go through the process, it's a very value-added, beneficial process, but none of your information is ever shared with anybody else. It's a very confidential process. That's the cornerstone of our business. So it's an anonymous, in the sense that we wouldn't share that, but it would add a ton of value to your company to assess, to go through your investment grade assessment.
And if anybody had questions about the Perpetual Purpose Trust, is that something they could reach out to you about?
Yeah, they can absolutely reach out to me. There are a couple of people that are experts in this. Yeah. I'm not an expert. Two that come to mind are Pete Oakes. I don't know if you know Pete.
Yeah, I know Pete. Wichita.
Pete's awesome. He's educated me. He's big time into this. And another guy named Ken Polk, who's here in Birmingham, who actually helped us put the Perpetual Purpose Trust in place here at Hollins College.
Okay. I love it. I love the idea of having a framework that helps protect from mission drift.
That's right.
That's a whole nother podcast, Mission Drift. So again, thank you, Duane. Thank you for tuning in today. We're grateful. If you are interested in finding out more about Acumen, our website is acumenimpact.com. If you're interested in membership, you can click the button to pursue a membership opportunity with Acumen. And also, if you're interested in leading other CEOs and business owners. Maybe you're in a journey like I was in, and you find yourself in maybe a second half position in life. I can't think of a better place to engage with other people who you may have some very tight affinity with, such as business owners and CEOs, and be able to help them sharpen, challenge, and inspire and become more effective leaders, propel their companies forward, and have a kingdom impact. AcumenImpact.com. Thank you, and God bless you.